Helping Seniors Television, all about improving quality of life for seniors. If you're a senior, know a senior, or plan to be a senior, then this show is for you. It's all about helping you develop your own aging plan so you can age actively and with dignity. Helping Seniors Television from the Helping Seniors Network of information, education, and resources.
I'm Kerry Fink with Helping Seniors of Brevard Television. Welcome to today's program. I have the pleasure of sitting in for our president and founder, Joe Steckler. You know, Helping Seniors was formed in 2011 to educate, empower, and inform seniors here in Brevard County and literally all over the globe, because a lot of the issues that we face just affect all of us as we get older. And today we're going to talk about a topic that I'm really excited to dig into. We were talking before the show that a lot of times for those of us who are not necessarily directly familiar with senior issues and things like that, we generally tend to lump things into the concept of, you know, if mom or dad is getting older, then it's time for them to go into an old folks home, or they come up with some similar generic description without really stopping to think that there are so many levels of care. We call them continuums of care. Joe Steckler, our president and founder, he's a retired Navy captain, and he loves to tell the story that he thinks all of us need to concentrate on building an aging plan. And what he means by that is as we go to elementary school and high school, they're always talking to us about, you need a plan for your career. What do you want to do? Do you want to go to college? What kind of work are you going to do? Things like that. Then the second thing is, once you're in the workforce, they say, well, you know, you're raising kids, so you need to think about their college. They tell us we need to think about our retirement. But here's the point. We get to retirement years or close to retirement years. Do we have an aging plan? Do we actually sit down and construct a thought about what are the things that we might need as we grow older? And the good news is we're living longer. So the thing is, we should be thinking about that aging plan. And so our guest today is Charisse Durham with Hibiscus Court Assisted Living and Memory Care. Welcome, Charisse.
Thank you very much.
It's so good to have you here because you have such a background in this, and we're going to talk about what happens and why an assisted living home, what it is, and what it can mean to your quality of life. And so I'm really excited to have you here to talk today. You have a great example of one, of course, in Hibiscus Court. But I want to just back up the question and say, for those of us that don't really even understand, we don't know how to parse those things out. When somebody says an assisted living home, what does that actually mean?
Well, it can be a wide variety of things. For instance, the assisted living licensure can allow a community to provide a lot of services, but individual communities may decide that they have a different segment of the market. So some are going to be, you know, spas and pools and fitness equipment and provide a very low level of personal care. Mm-hmm. Some focus on the more heavier care needs, or the heavier care needs. So what happens is it can be a wide variety, and really what it's about is looking at all the options available to you within your parameters, finding what you are really looking for and getting that right fit.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about, you know, a lot of people say, well, I want to age in place. That would be my preferred thing. And you actually have, I was reading through just your background, and I want to take a minute and ask you to share a little bit about your background, because it's fascinating. You have experience in helping people stay at home, and you also have a lot of experience at helping people thrive in assisted living care. So let's just talk about you for a minute, and let me just ask you to introduce a little bit of your background and how you got into the work that you do now in assisted living.
Sure. So originally I had been in nonprofit organizational management, and my grandfather was ill. And like most of us that work in senior care, we have a personal story. And after my grandfather passed away, I really took a good hard look and I said, you know, I want to go into senior living or senior assistance in some way, shape, or form, because my family, educated, resourceful, a lot of us, we did not have the experience we should have.
Right.
So my whole goal when I made that transition into the industry was I want to be that person that has all the answers. And if I don't have all the answers, I want to be able to get that person on their next step. I never want a family to come to me and not get a next step or some education. And sometimes people don't know what to ask. So really honing those skills of how to get the information that you need to help guide them, because they could be asking the wrong questions or looking in the wrong place. You really have to be able to get a big, broad picture of what is going on so that you can narrow down to say, okay, maybe assisted living isn't the right fit, but how about you consider this, or here's some resources that we need to put in place, or here's where you need to start looking at your long-term plan.
Mm-hmm. You know, what you say is so poignant, because we have the Helping Seniors Information Hotline. That is what we do. That's our service as a charity in Brevard County. We offer and operate the Senior Information Helpline. I'm going to give you a moment to grab a piece of paper so I can give you that phone number and you can jot that down. It's area code 321 473 7770. 321 473 7770. And we take calls from people, as you know, all over Brevard County, and they're calling in. And a lot of times people are in a mode of crisis or transition. Something has occurred. Now we're having to deal with things. And I think one of the things that you're speaking to is getting a little bit ahead of that curve. And that's what I wanted to ask you is, we've seen situations where people who were really in kind of a dire situation, they get into the right assisted living home fit, and then where you thought they might have been on their last leg, now they're thriving in a whole new way. And I know we talked about before the show, you talked about a couple of the reasons why assisted living helps people thrive.
Right, because when you are trying to find the right plan, or if you're in crisis, you're not taking the time to make the best decisions. So really getting ahead of that is key. But when you are in those crisis situations, you know, you have to talk about what are the key points that you are experiencing and what you need. So as people look at their plan, even if it's in a crisis situation, it's what are our core needs? What do I want? What does mom or dad want? What is clinically necessary? What's quality of life necessary? And you get the basics of what you are really looking for, and then you add on. Narrow that to what is essentially the most important thing. And when families are making those plans, there's always kind of a tipping point where maybe in-home isn't the safest option. And especially with in-home, you know, it can extend a person's stay at home for many years. And from my background of being from the in-home non-medical side, you know, you can provide for nutrition and medication management to a degree. It's also a possibility that it helps with socialization. But there can be a tipping point, financially even, where the in-home care that supplies those essential needs, financially that might not be viable. And so what I like to talk with families about is how this evolves. You can make a plan, but it's just a plan, and you really have to continually diagnose and adjust that plan and meet people where they are and understand their biggest wants and desires and things that are not just going to provide for their care, but also provide for their quality of life.
See, what you're talking about is something that our president and founder, Joe Steckler, has said over and over. He talks about elements of care, and he said the key is finding the right element of care for the situation that is where you're at now, but to understand that as that situation evolves or continues to develop, you may need to jump to a higher level of care. And so I think one of the things you're talking about is when somebody sits down and they look at assisted living, let me come back and I really want to hammer on that for a moment. What to a person that doesn't really understand, we just maybe have this broad thing of we remember not necessarily fondly going to visit a great grandparent when we were kids growing up, and somehow in our mind that's what we have fixated instead of what assisted living is really all about today. So maybe we start, I was going to ask two questions and let you, number one, tell us a little bit about how you define assisted living as you explain it to people, and then how you find the right assisted living case for your loved one or yourself, as the case may be.
Well, of course, you know, everyone has their preconceived ideas, and it's absolutely true. You know, 35 years ago, there wasn't an option. Nursing homes, as we commonly refer to them, evolved because we had hospitals that were overcrowded, and the legislation that created nursing homes was basically, you can take care of people if you meet a certain number of the guidelines, but they didn't specify which guidelines,
Right.
that kind of thing. So there was really no oversight. And about 35, 40 years ago, the concept of assisted living started. And what that was meant to be, and what I believe it to be, is a community, not sterile, not a facility. It's a community that can be their home, their apartment, their private space, how they would like to live. And assisted living, to me, should be a place where you can get your needs met, but they'll also not overrun
Right.
your independence. It should be a place where you can maintain all of your quality of life and independence and reduce the stress of those care needs or requirements. So, one of the other common misconceptions that people really get into is the idea that, oh, I'm downsizing my house, I'm downsizing my personal space. Well, a true assisted living community, that is your whole home.
Right.
So, for instance, at Hibiscus, they inherit 2 or 3 living rooms, and they get a chef and a driver and a concierge and, all these different things, full-time maintenance, full-time lawn care,
Yeah.
So it downsizes maybe a personal space, but if you think about how much space you use in your house, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, maybe a sitting area, all those things are still there. And they're still your personal space.
Yeah.
It just reduces the stress of the maintenance and the cost of the maintenance for all of those other factors.
It was one of the things I remember was one of your colleagues. I can't remember if it was Heidi or Ashley, but I remember somebody saying, well, what would you do? You asked the average person, what would you do if you won the lottery? Well, you'd hire a chauffeur, you'd hire a chef, you'd do all these things. And they go, well, that's
pretty much what it is. Yeah.
What you're doing.
We refer to it a little bit as cruise ship living because it is very much like living on a cruise ship.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
no, and so when you're trying to figure out, because we live in a county that somebody, I don't know if this is the accurate statistic, you could maybe even correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I've heard that there's actually like 140 different options when it comes to assisted living in our county.
I want to say someone even quoted 170.
Oh my goodness. So that gives, so if you're even beginning to think about things like this, we have trouble choosing between fish and chicken, let alone if we get into something that's really this serious and that complicated.
Right.
How does one start to make sense out of options? If you say, well, okay, I want to learn a little bit about this and start to get ahead of the curve, how do you do that? How do you start to differentiate?
I think one of the important things is location. So there's a lot of things that go into location. It may be proximity to family. It may be proximity to your particular favorite doctor or medical situation. It may be that you will not be able to live without your particular market or your particular restaurant. So location is a big thing. And once you narrow down your location, and really that's also about looking at your connections. So am I connected to this, that I need to be in this location, or am I willing to look? So that location connection is a huge factor. The second thing that is probably one of the easier ones to filter is going to be financial. What is my budget? Do I have a budget?
Right.
And a lot of times consulting with an elder care attorney or someone in that, or a financial planner, to say, okay, what realistically, what am I budgeted for?
Right.
And start looking at that, because budgets can change. Maybe right now I don't have high care needs and I can go into a lower cost or something like that. And maybe I do have the budget for top of the line, but do I really want to do that right now? So again, it's just getting a base idea and being fluid with it for where you are at the time. Real estate is probably, I call it real estate,
Right.
is probably another huge factor. Am I really beholden to exact square footage? Is it perceived or is it actual?
Okay.
Do I have enormous furniture that I've got to take with me, or can I, look at downsizing some of this furniture too? So real estate and the square footage and the foot plan, some people are really held. And I encourage people to be flexible with that, because it's still your home. You're decorating it. It's your items. It's home to you. So real estate is a consideration. And then care, because you really want to think about, if I am selecting where I am right now, is this going to be the place that's going to be provide my care as I age. And if it is important for you not to move again, you have to consider that. If that's not a big deal, that's fine.
Right.
You just really kind of have to know yourself and what you what is important to you.
So, you know, a lot of times we live in sort of a Google world where people access stuff and they say, okay, it's Saturday morning. I'm going to try to figure this out because, you know, I want to help mom or dad, you know, in their situation. Because you'd be surprised. Well, you probably wouldn't be because of your experience. But I think many viewers might be surprised at the amount of calls that we take on the Senior Information Helpline that come in from somebody who said, listen, you know, I live in, make up the city, Syracuse, New York, and I was just down visiting mom or dad over the winter, and I'm getting concerned. You know, when they first moved down there, they could handle everything. Now it's a little shaky, and I'm getting worried because I have to be up here. It's my job, whatever. I don't even know where to begin. So probably people begin, they pull up Google, they start looking at Google reviews or try to figure things out. I remember asking this question once, and again, I think it was one of your colleagues that had addressed it. I said, you know, if somebody comes in and says, you know, they go like, well, where's the weight room? Where's the swimming pool? And it almost jokingly is, well, are you moving in or is this for mom? What does mom want to do? I wanted to get you to kind of like cover a little bit about how you help people walk through the evaluation process, because they might have seen something on Google and said, well, that's the place.
Right. So there's a couple of things that I really like to help families navigate. And one is, you know, find out what's important. See, the adult child that may be helping with that, they'll have a list of things in their mind. But have they had that conversation? Have they actually asked mom or dad or that senior? Has that senior said, you know, these are the things that are important?
That's good.
Because they're not always the same. You know, with the adult child, they want the medication management, the safety factor, those kind of things. Mom may just want to be able to bring her piano.
Right.
Dad may want to know that he has got to be able to have the ultimate sports package. Both true stories.
Right.
What's important to them may not be the same thing. And what I try to help families also navigate through is that when there is a difference of opinion, sometimes they align and sometimes they don't. But even if they don't, there is a respectful way to honor the wishes of the senior. It is where they're going to have to live. And there are ways to navigate that. I really encourage families, if they start to see conflict in that process, to take a breath. This is not a long-term decision. It's not, you know, you move into an assisted living, most of them 30, 45 days notice, you can change things.
Oh, wow.
So it's not as huge of a decision as people make it. And a lot of times we are trained in our industry to help navigate care. So having a conversation with someone who does have the background and the expertise of, here are so many different options, sometimes they will bring some ideas to the table that the family would not have thought of on their own.
That's good.
So having those conversations, not thinking about it as, you know, I'm going to the home forever, or mom's got to say yes before we even look, those kind of things. It's just having a conversation. Let's just sit down and start it.
You know, and that's another thing that you're hitting on, which is an important factor in all this, is because, you know, so often somebody will take a look at this and project like, well, this is going to be, you know, 20 years or 40 years, but it's something that you do the research, and it's like you said, because typically in assisted living, it's a rental, right? I mean, it's a rental. So and then you talk about you have that flexibility. But I want to ask a question, and I want to ask you also some questions about Hibiscus Court particularly. But before we get there, I want to say, like, if you are out there Googling and you're just trying to, you know, get a lay of the land thing, there's probably some things you want to be careful about. Or what are the things that you would suggest to a family? Say, well, you know, we're going around, we're looking at places. What are the things that you would say, well, here's the things you might want to consider or ask them about?
Absolutely. So a Google review is completely open. It really doesn't give you any verification. So a Google review is going to have perhaps disgruntled employees. It's going to have a family member that lives several states away that's not educated about the continuum of care and who is making some assumptions. It's not always the whole story.
Right.
It can be very manipulated. So my first thought is, no matter where you are, if you're in Florida, it's ACA. If you're in, you know,
Now,
another state.
I want to stop you just because for those of us like me that aren't really all that great with it's funny, we live on the Space Coast, so we're used to NASA and a lot of acronyms, but tell us what ACA is.
So ACA is the governing body that does the inspections for licensure facilities. So ACHA, it's through the Florida State website. So if you go onto ACA's website, you can look at all the inspection records of these licensed facilities.
Wow.
And they are sending in professionals who are trained to find out anything that's going wrong.
Okay.
So if a complaint comes in from assisted living or any facility, they're charged with investigating, coming to a determination, and they publish that information.
Okay.
So the real information is available to consumers.
So it's different than the Google review, which is written by either a fan or a hater.
Right. So it's professionals reviewing professionals and looking at the standards and telling you, was it founded, was it unfounded? And a lot of times, even if it's founded, the sheer volume of seniors that we care for and the sheer details of what goes into that, you're never going to find everybody doing everything perfect.
Right.
And that's another thing I tell people to look for. You know, when you are starting to look, if you have over promises, if someone says, oh, they're going to love it and nothing's ever going to go wrong, and, you know, that's a lie.
Okay.
Things are going to happen. And as long as you're honest that we're going to navigate it together because we're starting a relationship. This is a long-term care relationship. We're going to love your parents. We're going to love them. And we're going to talk about this. So problems happen. If you deal with them honestly and with integrity, that's not a problem. It's how you handle a problem. Not that there's never going to be one.
Yeah, no, I get it. We had written a couple of things down here that we said was actually good. You said maybe I'm just going to hit these, and you can, if you want to add a comment. You said maybe ask for a family or a resident ambassador. I mean, who's better to tell the story than somebody who's right there? You said drop in on odd hours. That's an interesting point. What do you mean by that?
So, you know, generally speaking, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, there's going to be someone that is ready to give you a tour and do the sales pitch. Let me tell you all about it. And, you know, a lot of times it's coming at a different time, or ask for the activity calendar and when they're having something come in, or a late Saturday afternoon. And even if you are narrowing your search down to a couple of places, that's sometimes the determining factor.
Right.
Have you always been there at 10 o'clock in the morning when they have a very active time? Have you always been there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Have you always been there for a mealtime? What's going on Saturday at 2 o'clock?
Sure. That's a good point.
That can be a very different thing. So if you've narrowed it down, visiting to see what the residents are doing or what's going on, because, you know, we do live in a work world where people work normal hours a lot of the times. It should be 24/7 living. So
yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk just for a minute, because I want to talk a little bit about how you guys specifically at Hibiscus Court Assisted Living and Memory Care fit into that equation of assisted living in our area. And I want to start by something that I think is kind of unusual, is that I know that your executive director, who had been there, and I think this is a real important factor. She'd been there for like 17 years, and now she's moved up in the company. So, and the same goes for the person that was doing basically your job, is now elevated within the company. But it seems pretty unusual and pretty impressive to me anyway, that you have longevity of staff, from the standpoint that means that you couldn't be doing this unless you were doing it well, and be able to have that kind of a longevity. Is that something that happens often in this business, or no?
In this industry, we see an enormous amount of turnover, especially with direct caregivers. It's a very stressful situation.
Sure.
It calls for someone who naturally has a calling to do it. It's not making widgets. It's not running a cash register. It's with people all day long in very personal ways. So we have great longevity as far as our teammates go. Like you said, our leadership has moved up. We actually retired a few employees last year. And in this industry, retiring direct caregivers and even, you know, in your nutrition, your dining program, it's very unheard of. Because grass is sometimes always greener. perception-wise.
Right.
But the teamwork and having a lot of stability within
Right.
creates a system where we're able to not make the same mistakes twice,
Right.
learn from our mistakes, and continue to listen to our residents and improve the quality of life.
So in kind of a encapsulated elevator
Mhm.
presentation version where you'd say, somebody says, well, give me the quick why I should give Hibiscus Court a call, and
Okay.
what would you tell somebody?
So one of the things that's most unique about Hibiscus Court is that we do believe in meeting people where they are.
Mhm.
So for instance, we have our assisted living, we have our house that we call it. And our house is a great example of vibrant living. We're known for our activities, we're known for our dining. We've always got some great parties going on that
Oh,
are
yeah.
known in the community, and we love our volunteers. So there's that level, but then we also have a day program within our assisted living. So what that does is that enables, like I was saying, drop in at odd hours, see different things. It enables people to just try it out for a day or fill the need that a family has. We don't need assisted living. We just need day program. Okay. Well, eventually, if you're already involved in the day program, the transition
Then you're going to
to residential is helpful.
Wow.
And
That's good.
then on the memory care side of things, we have so many certified dementia practitioners, myself included. Even our maintenance director is certified dementia practitioner. So really putting some education and training makes a big difference. And in our garden, it's typically our highest care needs for memory care. But we also have a day program in there. So what that means is if we have a resident that is in our assisted living and then they need prompting, they can utilize the day program.
Wow, that's amazing. We are literally out of time for the show for today, but real quickly, I want you to give a phone number to give a call.
Sure.
If you want to call and get more information on Hibiscus Court.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. The number there is 321-951-1050.
All right, and thank you, viewer, for joining us today on Helping Seniors Television.
Our senior information line is available to you at 321-473-7770. There you can get help and direction that could be helpful for your specific situation or circumstances. The work of helping seniors is very important, but we can't do it alone. That is why our sponsors here in Brevard County are so important. I'd like to thank our many area sponsors, businesses, and medical providers who support the mission of helping seniors that help us carry the cost of our media efforts. If you'd like to join us either as a business partner or simply donate as an individual, we would welcome your call at 321-473-7770. You are always welcome to visit our website at www.helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. Thanks so much for your help. It does make a difference.